We see the impacts of the climate crisis all around us right now. There are climate refugees in Bangladesh and the Sahel, fleeing sea level rise and drought. Hurricanes have been accelerated by hurricane's intensity has increased by 21%, contributing to Hurricane Katrina, Sandy, Harvey, and Maria. Huge wildfires in Alaska, California, and Australia. Communities in Louisiana and Alaska that have had to relocate because of climate change. Ice caps are melting. Climate change helped bring Syria to war through a long drought. Over 50% of the world's coral reefs have died in the past 30 years. Heat waves have gotten more and more frequent and deadlier. Climate change is causing and will continue to cause more intense or longer sea level rise, decline in glaciers and ice sheets, a loss of almost all coral reefs, reductions in ecosystems and biodiversity, decline in air quality, disease, famine, allergies, heat waves, heat-related illnesses, catastrophic hurricanes, intense precipitation events, worse ticks and pestilence, invasive species and wildfires, degrading infrastructure, decline in mental health, rise in economic inequality, a rise in war and conflict, a rise in crime, creation of environmental refugees, rise in economic depressions, rise in terrorism. And there are worse impacts for the future, including 1.5 million dying across the world each year due to climate change, including 4,000 dying from heat-related illnesses by 2100 in the Midwest alone. A loss of a million species, or climate change could contribute to a loss of a million species, according to a report by IBCs. Entire countries like Bangladesh and Netherlands could disappear beneath the waves. An economic crash bigger than the Great Depression, with a loss of which will be semi-permanent, and a loss of 66 trillion over the century, or at least 66 trillion over the century due to climate change. Versus if we started acting on climate change, we would cost 20 trillion, but would help our economy. And it would also bring 2 to 20 million jobs, promote the economy, save millions from dying from air and water pollution, and more. But no industrialized country is meeting their Paris targets. Oil and gas emissions have not peaked. We are still heading for more than 4 degrees of warming by the end of this century. And we're still heading for more than 4 degrees of warming, and by the end of the century, which could which would make humanity not unable to produce enough food to feed all humans. Not counting distribution. We need to get our emissions down by at least 55% drop by 2030, and to net zero by at least 2050. We have been through the Civil War. We've brought the economy back from the Great Depression, been through World War II, put a man on the moon. If we try, we can really do this. I'm talking about expanding wind, solar, and other renewables and reaching 100% clean energy, implementing grid batteries, building a DC national grid, expanding electric vehicles, chargers, and phasing out new fossil fuel vehicles, ending deforestation, implementing carbon capture and sequestration on industry, research in sustainable aviation, recycling, grid batteries, industry, shipping, carbon capture and sequestration, and climate change, empowering Native Americans, helping small family-owned farms instead of big agribusinesses, implementing regenerative farming, feed additives, and precision agriculture and anaerobic digesters, putting a price on carbon, implementing high-speed rail and expanding public transportation, weatherizing housing, electrifying rail, electrifying cooking and heating, creating millions of jobs, creating millions of new manufacturing jobs, especially in urban poor, Rust Belt, Coal Belt, and rural areas, helping industry mitigate climate change, ending the fossil fuel industry, but at the same time making sure everyone in the fossil fuel industry can continue employment and the same pay and benefits, or retire if they choose. Ending fossil fuel subsidies, providing a just transition, building sea walls and dikes and river gates, and raising infrastructure to adapt to sea level rise. Resilient building codes, helping wildlife and agriculture adapt to climate change and drought. Improving and expanding our hospitals and emergency services to cope with the impacts of climate change. Phasing out coal by 2030, and international aid to countries that cannot mitigate and adapt to climate change effectively. We will solve climate change. We want a future that is bright and vibrant, with thriving economies and animal species that are not going extinct, and healthy people, and places that will not be underwater. A future that is not less than what our parents told us would give us. We need to take a stand for that future because it's under threat. We have 30 years to completely transform our economy and to get off fossil fuels, or we hit dangerous 2 degrees. For those who doubt our abilities, economists and energy scientists say it is doable. For those who doubt the political future of the U.S., Winston Churchill said something about America. He said, America will always do what's right, but only after exhausting every possible option. And history provides us, so when we do what's right, we do it really well when we get there. You may say you don't want to live. You may say you won't live to see climate change, or so what the heck. But even if you knew that there was going to be a terrorist attack somewhere, would you tell authorities, but you weren't going to be hurt by it? I hope so. I think you'd say yes. Don't you care about your children and grandchildren? Don't you care about your constituents? Don't you care about your friends and family? Don't you care about America? Have you no conscience? It isn't all about you and your election. This is killing people right today, right now. People are dying from it. The only way to prevent future deaths is to act now. I get responses like, I won't be around well then. Well, you're around right now and people are dying from it right now. And it isn't about you. It's about humanity. This is about your friends, family, strangers on the street, constituents, your children and grandchildren. It's just about the whole world. Have some humanity. This isn't about you. It's about us. America is under threat. Our entire species is under threat, and we just stand around and do nothing. I'm tired of it. There's no words to describe how angry this makes me. I want to know where does the corruption ends and where does the good poor people with a conscience begins. Politicians, your actions are bigger than your election. Be brave. Soldiers die for our freedom, and you won't brave losing your election for our freedom. It doesn't make any sense. Leaders with no courage shouldn't be leaders at all, and won't be there after next election. Paraphrasing Greta, you say you'll risk everything for your children, but that is a lie, because you won't risk anything to protect them from deadly climate change. Even the many who believe in it, still that applies to them. And if you're mad at me for saying that, prove me wrong. No more excuses, no more lies and broken promises, no more bickering, no more debating whether or not to act, no more cowardice, no more saying no because of your petty dislikes, no more waiting for someone else to act. We will care about other people, and we will have a conscience. We will hold promises to our children. We will act on climate change. We will act now and win this fight. This makes me so angry with climate change, with people just ignoring it. We can act on this, and we have to do this together.